My name is Mason Reed. I am 30 years old, and I woke up in the ICU to a throat full of hospital air and a single text from my father. We need $50,000 for Ella's wedding this week. No, how are you? No, glad you lived. 2 days later, still coughing antiseptic, I saw a $25,000 deposit pulled from my account with a signature I never gave. The heart monitor ticked like a metronome for someone else's bill. I stared at the screen and felt something lock into place. But what they didn't know was, before I continue, tell me where you're watching from. And hit like and subscribe if you've ever been betrayed by family. Drop your city or country in the comments so I know who's at the table with me tonight. If this feels a little too real, share it with one person who needs proof that boundaries are allowed. The first mirror that ever told me the truth was the one in my studio kitchen. Afternoon light slides across that room from left to right, cutting a bright bar over the counter and making the shadows honest. I stand in it when I need to feel like a person who can be read. White fitted shirt collar pressed sharp enough to keep a sentence straight. Honey chestnut hair I dyed after a bad week and kept because it makes me look less tired. Clean, shave a touch of concealer under the eyes when the night ran long. Skin even because I learned the hard way that looking rested buys you patience. I set the camera on the windowsill frame myself from the knees up, both arms and no elbows, cropped a simple background of sky and the vague edge of the building across from mine. The light hits my face from the left and leaves the right in a cool gradient, so you can see depth, not drama. I smooth the shirt with my palms. I align a black binder and a pin parallel to the counter's edge. I didn't know it back then, but this ritual would turn into armor. At our house growing up, dinner smelled like orange cleaner, pretending to be citrus, and pot roast, pretending to be love. The television in the living room was always on sports highlights, muted helmets colliding in slow motion, while the room performed small kindnesses that cost me. Dad would lean back, fork in the air, as if he were conducting an invisible orchestra. Family helps family, he'd say, and it sounded like scripture because he said it with his preacher voice, even though we haven't gone to church since I was 10. Mom would slide the biggest piece of meat to my sister Ella. She's growing, Mom would add, and then to me a bright smile. You don't mind, do you? I learned early that the fastest way to end a conversation is to be useful. I didn't know it back then, but useful can make you disappear. At the 6th grade science fair, I built a lazy Susan out of scrap wood and a salvaged bearing from our neighbor's garage. It wasn't much, but it made the judges smile, and they stuck a blue ribbon to my cardboard. Dad crushed my shoulder in his hand and told me good work, then turned to Ella and said, maybe we should get you a better pair of dance shoes. Your brother's discipline could rub off. The picture from that night is fuzzy and warm. I'm holding the ribbon. Dad's hand is on Ella's shoulder. Mom is mid-blink. Ella is beaming past the camera at herself. I didn't know it then, but 100 small reassignments of praise can move a mountain. I started mowing lawns when other kids were still arguing with their parents about bedtime. The sound of the mower was a hum I could hide inside. In the heat of July, the gasoline smell clung to my hands even after the lemon-scented dish soap. The first time I handed Mom an envelope with cash edges aligned, my name penciled on the front like a school assignment, she kissed my forehead and called me her little man. We'll pay you back Friday, Dad said. Friday arrived the way holidays do when you don't have kids, only for other people. I didn't know it back then, but Friday would become an echo that bounced off my skull every time I saw a bill with someone else's name attached to mine. The winter, the furnace dyed the air inside. The house burned your throat with cold. In the emergency company's waiting room, I could smell burnt coffee and someone's wool coat drying on a heater that shouldn't have been touching fabric. The estimate stung like a dentist bill read out loud. Dad frowned at the number as if the technician had insulted him personally. Mom swallowed and looked at me. I pulled out my envelope, the money I'd thought might become a starter laptop, and said, use mine. Dad called me a good son. Mom hugged me and dabbed at her eyes like I'd proposed marriage. I wrote Furnace $2,200 on a sticky note and stuck it in my planner. I swallowed the ache that came with the praise and told myself it doesn't hurt if you decide it doesn't. I didn't know it back then, but deciding not to hurt is pain that invoices later. Ella learned the power of a front-facing camera before she learned to pay late fees. When she wanted something, her voice got soft, and the world rearranged. She took a gap year to find herself, which turned into a second gap year to find better lighting. I covered a $1,000 shortfall for a community college class because she had to grab the seat now. She'd pay me Friday. Friday came dressed as a brunch selfie. "You're the best," she texted, a confetti of hearts that meant nothing at the bank. I clicked my analog watch forward 2 minutes so I wouldn't be late for a meeting. The strap smelled like leather and hand soap. I didn't know it back then, but that watch would become my metronome when the room tried to speed me up. The least disaster was my fault, not because I signed, but because I believed the words "just 6 months." Ella's roommate went psycho, she said, and the landlord needed a co-signer for a minute. Minutes stretch when the rent is late. At 7:03 a.m., on a February morning that looked gray even on the weather app, the apartment office called to inform me that as a responsible party, I was responsible. I said I'd cover to protect my credit because credit companies don't care about anecdotes, only numbers. My voice sounded like a voicemail I didn't want to leave. I didn't know it back then, but every auto payment I set up was a thread someone else could pull when they needed a favor. Read fam, our family group chat dings like a cheerful bird that doesn't know you're trying to sleep. Mom sends recipes and articles about gratitude that read like invoices. Dad sends workout memes with captions about grit. Ella sends links to things she wants for the mood and asks who still has the Netflix login. If I don't answer within a reasonable time frame, the dots bubble anyway, as if they're texting the concept of silence. One time I said I couldn't float the cell bill without eating ramen for the week. Dad typed "family helps family." Mom added "don't make me worry." Ella sent a crying, laughing emoji that made the sentence feel like a dare. I didn't know it then, but laughter can be a lid on a pot that's already boiling. I got good at being the person who kept the world from becoming a mess. That's what operations analysts do. We keep the trains on time, if the trains are shipments, and the time is a window you promise to a customer who only knows by end of day. Fluorescent lights flatten the color out of everything, but there's a comfort in that too. No shadows means fewer surprises. My inbox fills with problems that mostly turn into patterns once you adjust the scale. At work, when someone needs something, they say it. When I fix it, they nod and move on. No one frames it as love. No one frames it as betrayal. It's clean. It's measurable. I didn't know it back then, but clean and measurable would be the only way to get through to my family later. On my way home most nights, I stop by the discount grocery and pick up a carton of eggs and the good coffee when it's on sale. The cashier's nails click against the keypad like a metronome for my thoughts. In my building's stairwell, it smells like laundry and someone else's dinner. Inside my apartment, it smells like nothing until I brew coffee or burn toast. The rhythm of living alone is a kind of prayer, pan, plate, sponge, towel, repeat. I hang my white shirts on the back of a chair to keep the shape. I iron on a folded bath towel. I keep a lint roller next to the fruit bowl. If you think that sounds clinical, you haven't grown up in a house where the only way to be seen was to be perfect at not needing anything. I can track the moment I started keeping a binder for everything. It was the first time Ella said, "just send me the picture of the receipt," and I realized I couldn't find it. I bought a cheap black binder, printed the bank statements and invoices and lease pages, and tucked them into clear sleeves. I labeled the spine with masking tape. It made me feel like I could point to a line and say, "here is the truth." I didn't know it back then, but the binder would become the only voice that couldn't be talked over. There was a Thanksgiving when I was 22 and Ella was 19, and Dad decided we should go around the table and say what we're grateful for. Ella said health and family, and Mom teared up. Dad said opportunity. I said warmth, and it was a joke for me. Warmth, the furnace provides warmth, the house demands warmth as currency you pay without receipts. No one laughed. The turkey smelled like butter and thyme. The chair under me wobbled, and I put a folded napkin under one leg so the table wouldn't shake. That's a person's job in our family. Make sure the table doesn't shake. I didn't know it then, but one day I would let it shake. If you've ever been sick in a house that's always announcing itself as fine, you know the kind of quiet I'm talking about. Senior year of high school, I had strep so bad it swallowed my voice. I tapped a spoon against a glass to get Mom's attention. She turned from helping Ella choose a dress for a winter formal and said, "baby, patience." I swallowed and felt the scrape. I made tea with honey and sat on the edge of my bed, the beep of the microwave counting out the minutes when my body wouldn't. I learned to take care of myself because I was good at reading instructions, and my father's instruction manual only had 2 pages: help and don't embarrass me. I didn't know it then, but self-care is how you survive being everybody's emergency contact. Ella loved to say that I was born old. It was a joke when I taught her to make a budget on an index card, and she used the card as a coaster. It was a joke when I brought a toolkit to her apartment to fix the cabinet door, and she filmed me for her story, with a halo emoji caption, "My brother saves the day." It was a joke when she posted a mood board with wedding colors 3 years before she met Brandon and tagged me with the words "my sponsor." I smiled and liked the post because typing no in public is a skill I didn't have yet. I didn't know it back then, but words you don't say are still witnesses. At work, when a load goes sideways, I pull up the timeline. What was scanned? When did it leave the dock? Who signed? The question is always the same: where did the handoff fail? The answer is usually at the part where someone assumed. At home, handoffs failed all the time because the assumption was always me. You'll cover this until Friday. You'll be the contact. You'll make the call. You'll fix this because fixing is what you're good at, and we need you to be good, not loud. I didn't know it back then, but the day would come when loud and good would mean the same thing. If I close my eyes, I can feel that white shirt against my shoulders. The first time I realized clothes could be strategy, not fashion strategy. The way a fitted sleeve makes you look deliberate. The way a clean line signals that you arrived on purpose. The way a face lit from the left and shadowed on the right lets people see angles without mistaking them for arrogance. I learned to let my jaw relax, to keep my eyes steady, to let silence sit for 3 full seconds before I answered. I kept a small concealer stick in the bathroom drawer for the purple half moons that got darker when I worried overnight. Looking like I had slept became a courtesy to myself. I didn't know it back then, but courtesy would be the one thing I refused to outsource. The night before everything started to tilt for real, I stood at my counter with the binder open and a cup of coffee that had gone from decent to bitter. While I reviewed numbers that weren't supposed to be mine, I lined my pen parallel to the binder's edge, clicked it closed, adjusted it again because order calms my hands. The building's hallway light leaked under my door in a thin stripe. The refrigerator hummed a low note. Somewhere upstairs, someone laughed, and for once it didn't sound like it was at my expense. I slid a new clear sleeve into the binder, empty for now, labeled with a sticky note I'd written without thinking: wedding. I didn't know it back then, but that was the pocket that would catch the first red flag before it could run. Hospitals have their own weather. The air is too clean, the light is too white, and the clocks run on a rhythm that doesn't care if you're ready. In the ICU, tape tugged at my skin, and the heart monitor ticked like a metronome set to someone else's deadline. When I finally surfaced enough to hold my phone, there was the message from my father. "We need $50,000 for Ella's wedding this week. No, glad you made it. No, come home when you're stronger." Just a bill and a sentence suit. I stared at it until the screen dimmed and, out of habit, took a screenshot. I didn't know it then, but screenshots would become my life raft. Nurses moved like good ghosts. One of them adjusted the IV with the gentlest hands I've ever seen and said, "Someone's waiting for you at home," the way people say it when they mean hope. It was true, just not in the way she thought. When Mom called that night, her voice was soft with the kind of worry that sounds like a lullaby until you hear the verse under it. "You scared me," she said. "Rest, baby. When you're up, we'll talk about Ella's big day. She's so stressed." She exhaled and let the silence sit like a ripe fruit. I said okay, because okay is the life jacket you throw to a conversation that wants to drown you. I didn't know it back then, but my okays had begun to starve. They discharged me into a November that smelled like wet leaves and chimneys. I shuffled up the stairwell to my studio, one hand on the rail, breath loud in my chest. Inside, I turned on the lamp and stood in the swath of light that goes left to right across my counter. I looked like a person again: clean shave, honey chestnut hair, combed in place, a white fitted shirt that said I had chosen to show up. I put a dot of concealer under each eye to erase the hospital's version of me. The mirror gave me depth: bright on one cheek, shadow on the other, real, not dramatic. I framed myself in the camera from the knees up, both arms easy at my sides, nothing cropped. It felt ridiculous and necessary. I didn't know it then, but making myself visible to myself would be how I'd stay visible in rooms that preferred me as a tool. 2 mornings later, coffee in a chipped mug, I opened my banking app and blinked. A $25,000 debit label deposit had marched out of my account like it knew where it was going. My stomach went cold, then hot. The transaction detail field showed a vendor name I didn't recognize and a note: contract deposit, typed like an invitation. The app asked, "Was this you?" I pressed no with a thumb that shook once. Then I called the bank. Fraud department. Arjun, speaking, a calm voice, said, as if the world could be mended by tone alone. The branch smelled like toner and wet coats. When I arrived, the floor mats dark with boot prints, the pins on chains clicking like patient metronomes. Arjun shook my hand through the glass and slid a form toward me. Let's lock you down first, he said. Fraud alert, credit freeze, and a branch note that no authorizations are to be accepted by phone even if your daughter or mother is on another line. He looked up like he'd heard this pitch before. In person only with your ID, your signature. That protects you from any quick awareness tricks. People do this by phone, I asked. People try, he said, typing. Keys sounded like rain on a tin roof. Also, our internal log shows the access point on the disputed transaction corresponds to a home network associated with your parents' address. He said it carefully, not as an accusation, more like a weather report. We'll handle the investigation. You handle your boundaries. He printed 2 pages that said exactly what he'd just told me in words the bank would stand behind. I initialed and signed where he pointed. The pen whispered across paper. He made copies and slid them into a clear sleeve. Take this, he said. Carry it. I didn't know it then, but those 8 lines in bold would be the spine of my future. On the walk back to my car, my phone pinged with a notification from ReadFam. Mom had written a paragraph that started with baby and ended with don't make me sick, and in the middle said the thing that always said itself. We need to show face for Ella. Family helps family. Dad added a thumbs up emoji that felt like a stamp. Ella posted a mood board, dresses, candles, gold forks. She tagged me, my sponsor, with a winking face that pretended to be cute. I stared, then took a breath and typed nothing. Some silences are a scalpel. I didn't know it then, but my silence was finally cutting in the right direction. Danielle called the next afternoon while I was checking shipment times. Her voice was bright, the professional cheer people use when their next sentence might make you flinch. Mason, Danielle Shore here from Shoreline Events. We're so excited for Ella's date. I just need to confirm the outstanding deposit and your billing address since you're listed as the primary contact. The word primary made the back of my neck prick. I'm not the primary anything, I said. Please email me whatever document says I am. There was a pause so slender I could see through it. Of course, she said. Sending now. She hung up like she'd touched a hot pan. The PDF arrived 3 minutes later. I printed it because ink makes things honest. There it was, Shoreline Events Services Agreement, with a neat signature in a gray scan labeled Mason Reed, and my name in a field that read Primary Contact divided by billing. My fingers went cold holding paper that claimed me. My actual signature slants slightly right on the end, a habit I picked up from a teacher who loved cursive. The one on the page slanted left and had a flat top on the M that I've never written in my life. Someone had cut out my name from a different document and pasted it into a party I wasn't invited to. I didn't know it then, but fonts and slants become witnesses when people think you'll be too polite to make them testify. That night I built a new tabbed section in the binder. Contracts. I slipped Danielle's PDF into a sleeve. Behind it, I placed the bank's fraud confirmation with its bolded lines. Behind that I added the text from Dad, the paragraph from Mom, the tag from Ella. Printed screenshots are ugly pixelated edges, timestamps like gnats, but ugliness can be a purity test. I made a 1-page timeline: furnace $2,200 paid, tuition $1,000 paid, lease cosign paid, streaming family accounts ongoing, cell bill float, multiple wedding deposit $25,000 disputed. I wrote in small letters under the last line, not my signature. I didn't know it then, but a single page that fits on a clipboard turns a mess into a map. I tried to nap. Every time I closed my eyes, numbers ran past like they were late for a bus. When I couldn't stand my own bed, I got up, ironed a shirt I'd already ironed, and practiced my face. Not blank open. Not angry anchored. I stood where the window light crosses from left to right, looked into the lens, and said the sentences out loud just to hear if they fit in my mouth. I'm not your co-signer. No phone authorizations. If a document has my name without my signature, it doesn't have me. My jaw wanted to clench at the end of each one. I let it loosen. I didn't know it then, but my voice would need to sound like a form you couldn't forge. Victor showed up with a manila folder on a windy afternoon and set it on the railing of my stoop like an offering. The papers inside had a title that needed a better lawyer. Family Agreement. It looked like something we might have signed in crayon when I was 6. We just need your commitment on paper, he said. Hands open, salesman smooth. 50,000 across 6 months. Reasonable. Linda's smile was draped over the whole scene like lace hiding a crack. Don't make this ugly, she said. It's just a formality. My breath fogged in front of my mouth. I felt the edge of the binder through my coat like a second spine. No, I said. This goes back with you. Victor tried the old trick. You sign now nobody has to know about money at the wedding. The word nobody is a lie that wears nice shoes. I closed the folder and held it out. This is a no. He didn't take it. Wind flipped the top sheet like a scold. I put the folder on the railing and went inside. I didn't know it then, but the door closing behind me would be the first one I let stay closed. Jules and Cameron, two colleagues who have perfected the art of saying exactly enough, coached me in the break room over reheated soup and a humming microwave. 2 sentences, Jules said. No more. If they ask a third time, repeat sentence 1. Cameron nodded. Never explain what the bank can explain with a letterhead. We rehearsed like we were prepping for a quarterly call. Kindness isn't consent. Documentation beats drama. I'm not available for that. Each line felt strange until it didn't. I didn't know it then, but rehearsing boundaries is as unglamorous and necessary as ironing. At rehearsal dinner the night before the wedding, I watched the room like an analyst. The hall smelled like roasted chicken and something floral that clung to sweaters. Gold chairs scraped the floor in small apologies. Television sports highlights looped on a silent screen over the bar. The same catch replayed like time had admired itself and gone back for seconds. I carried a small envelope with a single-page summary in case a cousin asked me in a corner to tell my side. Nobody asked. Ella moved across the room like a spotlight followed her. Brandon told a story about their first date that sounded like he'd learned it from Ella's caption. When the coordinator handed out gift bags for the wedding party, I saw a folded printout tucked inside one venue balance and bar minimum along with a handwritten note count on MR. The letters were Victor's the way his R chose the line on the right. I didn't take the page. I didn't need to. I took a picture. I didn't know it then, but that snapshot would be the quietest confession of the night. D. Ruth and Co. Gary met me at a coffee shop near the bank the next morning because I asked. The place smelled like burnt espresso and new paint. I slid a concise version of the binder across the table. Bank freeze and fraud alert, the contract with the wrong signature, the timeline. Ruth read every line like someone who has been lied to before and learned how to tell. Gary watched my face instead of the paper. She's our niece, he said finally, meaning Ella without saying her name. But this is wrong. He tapped the bolded sentence on the bank letter. No authorizations by phone. Your father's going to call it drama. It's procedure, I said. Then use procedure, Ruth said. On purpose. I didn't know it then, but their quiet pivot would keep me from looking like a lone flare in a dark field. Danielle emailed again that afternoon with a measured tone. We'll need the deposit verified by close of business, she wrote, or bar service will be limited. The phrase limited read like a threat in a suit. I forwarded her Arjun's letter, blacking out the case number and leaving the sentence she needed to see. I added one line, my name is not available for your billing system. She didn't respond right away. The silence felt better than any apology. In my apartment, I laid the binder open and practiced lining up everything with my breath. Inhale bank letter. Exhale contract with the slanting M. Inhale the timeline. Exhale my 2-sentence script. The refrigerator hummed. The radiator ticked like it had learned the metronome's job. Outside wind scraped dry leaves along the sidewalk the way a broom does when someone is cleaning up after a party no one will admit got out of hand. I ironed one more white shirt, not because it needed it, but because the hiss of steam and the glide of fabric under my palm told my body that I decide how things lie flat. When I showered, I let the hot water make steam roll off my shoulders. I shaved slow. I combed the honey chestnut hair till it lay neat, not boastful. I used just enough concealer to erase the leftover ICU in my eyes. I buttoned the white shirt fitted clean meant to be seen and tucked it into charcoal trousers, the belt stitching straight as a ledger line. In the mirror, the light from the left cut across my face, leaving the right in a gradient that made the bones look carved. I stood in the frame from the knees up, both arms and shoulders, open like a person ready to take the stand. I didn't look angry. I looked like the kind of man who doesn't raise his voice because the paper will do it for him. I slid the binder into a slim black folio, the kind that disappears until you open it. I slipped the spare pin inside and aligned them both with the edge of the counter because the straightness soothes something no one else can reach. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and set it face down so it couldn't perform emergencies at me. I breathed in, counted 3, breathed out, and felt my heartbeat settle into a rhythm that belonged to me. If you've ever walked into a room that expects you to be a wallet, you know the weight of the doorknob. You know the way sound hits you first, the laughter an octave too high, the chairs scraping the glasses nudging the table like rain. You know how eyes scan for your yes before they say your name. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to plead. I wasn't going to turn family into court because they had already done that when they put my name on their line. I was going to document. I was going to lay out the paper and let gravity hold its breath. Reed fam woke me before the sun did. Mom dropped a paragraph that began with sweetheart and ended with don't make me sick, looping the chorus in the middle. Ella's under so much pressure, we need to show face, family helps family. Dad followed with a single sentence, confirm $50 K today so we don't have to talk about money at the wedding. Ella posted a selfie with candles and gold forks and wrote, some people are determined to ruin joy, tagging, no one tagging everyone. I read it in the glow of my phone and felt the old reflex reach for yes like it was medicine. I set the phone face down. The room went quiet in that honest way only an empty apartment knows. By noon their car idled at the curb, heater fan whirring. Victor stood on my stoop with a leather folder and the look he uses to close deals. Linda took a half step behind him, soft scarf, softer tone. He opened the folder like a magician, revealing a Dove family agreement. Lines with blanks. Signature lines that waited for me. 6 monthly installments, he said. It will keep the peace. Linda touched my sleeve. Sign and we won't embarrass you by talking money at the reception. No, I said. Victor blinked slow. Man to man, no phone authorizations. No cosign. No agreement, I said steady. He tried to hand me a pin. I didn't take it. You want me at the wedding, he said. Be our good boy tonight. The phrase slid under my ribs like a thin blade. I set my body at a slight angle so the door could close if it needed to. I'm not a boy, I said. And good doesn't mean easy. He held my eyes long enough to make the porch light buzz louder. Then don't come, he said. Linda flinched. Victor, don't, I said to both of them, voice low. He laid the pen across the page like a dare. I closed the folder and put it back in his hands. The cold air bit my throat as I shut the door. I leaned on it only until the latch clicked. I swallowed what wanted to rise. The silence on my side of the wood felt like a brand new room. Danielle's email landed at 2:11. Subject primary contact confirmation. Attach the services agreement again, my scanned name sitting where it didn't live. I printed it, placed it next to 3 older documents with my real signature, and stared. My hand has a right lean on the N, the imposter slants left. My M is open, theirs is boxed, a schoolhouse roof. I called Danielle. That signature is not mine, I said. And I am not your primary contact. She exhaled the way people do when they realize the floor might not be under them. I'm sorry, she said. Your mother mentioned you were handling it. We need a deposit by close of business or we limit bar service. You will remove my name, I said. Email me confirming it. I can't undo what's in the system. Then write that you cannot rely on it, I said. In writing, she promised to follow up. I hung up and wrote a short memo to myself. Called 2:14 p.m. Disputed primary. Contact requested removal and disavowal. I slid the memo into the sleeve behind the contract. Ink makes things behave. At 3:03 a new number lit my screen. No contact photo, no name. The text read, stop making drama or people will hear what you said about Dad. Then another, delete your little binder before you embarrass us. I screenshotted both, then screenshotted the timestamps, then dropped the phone like it was hot. My palms shone. I turned on the kitchen tap and let cold water run over them until they calmed. I printed the screenshots and filed them under a tab I hadn't planned to need threats. The page looked ridiculous, gray bubbles, petty words, evidence anyway. I wrote one line under it in pencil. Fear is a storyteller. Don't let it narrate. Work became my rehearsal hall. In the break room, Jules leaned against the counter, paper cup steaming. 2 lines, then repeat, she said. Don't explain what the bank can explain. Cameron nodded. You get 30 seconds of patience. After that, you're feeding a fire. We role-played until my mouth learned the weight of each word. Co-sign for your sister. My name isn't your line of credit. Just say you're aware on a quick call. I don't authorize by phone. Sign this, keep the peace. Kindness isn't consent. Jules tapped my folio. Write them in order. Tape them inside. I did. The tape made a small sound like a zipper. My body noticed the checklist and unclenched. At 4:22 Arjun called. Just a heads up, he said. We received 2 attempts to add your authorization via conference call, female voices on the line. The freeze held. Your branch note flagged it. He didn't ask for names. He didn't need to. We've also notated that any future attempt triggers a live confirm to you before any change. You already saved me, I said. We just followed the rules, he said. That's why they're there. I thanked him and sent the call summary to my own email BC seeing the binder's dedicated address. I like records to arrive twice. The group chat kept trying to turn itself into a courtroom. Mom, be generous tonight. Dad, a real man doesn't hide behind banks. Ella, imagine being this bitter about a day that isn't yours. I typed 3 lines not to them to myself in the Notes app and copied them to a blank page. They were the script simple as a recipe. I tucked the page behind the bank letter. You look like you're packing for trial, Cameron said when he saw me zip the folio. I'm packing for dinner, I said. Same thing, Jules said. Just better lighting. Near dusk, I went to the river to listen to something that wasn't a notification. The water wore the sky like a dress gray moving. I stood with my left cheek toward the wind so the cold could carve me awake. A runner passed behind me, footfalls, soft breath, loud, the human metronome of getting somewhere on purpose. I took the letter from my grandfather out of its sleeve and read the one sentence he wrote the same way every time. Use it for you. My throat warmed around it. I slid the letter back, smoothing the crease like a seam. On my way home, the phone buzzed with a call from Victor. I let it go twice, then answered. We'll put you on speaker, he said without hello. Your mother is here. Linda's voice floated in syrup and thunder. Just say you're aware, she said. It's a formality. I watched the turn signal tick on my dashboard on off like a metronome for lying. No phone authorizations, I said. In person only. Stop hiding behind paperwork. Victor said. Step up. Paperwork is where steps count, I said. Silence. A click. The call ended. I pulled into my spot and sat with my hands on the wheel until my pulse matched the cooling tick of the engine. Back upstairs, I changed passwords I'd been lazy about and removed every shared login with my card attached. Netflix gone. Family music plan gone. Utilities no more guest access. Each confirmation email landed in my inbox with a subject line that read like a calm verdict. I printed the list not because I needed it, but because rituals make my brain believe me. I set out the white shirt I would wear, ironed it one more time, and tested the frame, knees up, both arms in the window, casting left to right light that gave me angles without theater. Honey chestnut hair, tidy shave, clean concealer, just enough to erase the hospital shadow. I aligned the pen parallel to the folio's edge. I pressed the binder's spine with my palm until it lay flat. The apartment hummed like a machine that likes its job. When my phone buzzed again, it was Ruth. We're sitting near the head table tomorrow. If you need a witness, raise your water glass. I stared at the message until the words steadied. A witness changes the shape of a room. I typed back. Thank you. I'll bring paper. I went to bed early and lay on my back listening to the radiator tick like a distant metronome counting breaths. On the third count of 10, I realized I wasn't waiting for permission anymore. I wasn't rehearsing the ways I might be wrong. I was rehearsing the order in which the truth would land. The morning of the wedding smelled like wet pavement and coffee grounds. I woke before the alarm and lay still counting breaths until my chest remembered it belonged to me. The inbox had 2 new emails from Arjun, PDFs on bank letterhead, confirming the fraud alert, the freeze, and the branch note in bold, no authorizations by phone, in person only with government ID. He'd attached a short cover line. Carry these. I printed 3 sets, the ink warming my palms. Paper doesn't raise its voice. It doesn't need to. I dress the way I've learned to load a truck, in an order that makes sense when everything starts moving. White fitted shirt, collar pressed. Charcoal trousers. Honey chestnut hair combed clean. Clean shave, a touch of concealer to erase the last of the ICU. I stood where the window lays, light left to right, checked the frame, knees up, both arms and shoulders open. The face looking back wasn't angry. It was anchored. A reply from Danielle slid in at 9:11 a.m. We still need deposit by 2 p.m. or bar service will be limited to wine divided by beer. Also, your name appears as sponsor toast on the program at 6:45 p.m. Please confirm. Sponsor toast read like a joke that cost extra. I called. Remove my name, I said. I'm not a sponsor. She hesitated. Programs are already printed. Then noted at the mic, I said. Do not announce me as anything but guest. I'll do what I can, she said, and hung up with the sound people make when they realize gravity isn't on their side. Jules texted from a farmer's market stall, a photo of Brussels sprouts, and the caption, 2 lines. Repeat if needed. Cameron added, bring extra pins. People respect pins. I slid a second pin into the folio and taped my microscript to the inside cover, like a pilot's checklist. At a print shop that smelled like toner and hot plastic, I made thin, clean packets bank confirmations. The forged contract with my name slanting wrong a one-page timeline. Yellow tabs. A simple cover titled Short Record. I wasn't planning a show. I was preparing for an argument that would accuse itself of being a scene. Read fam pinged while the copier word. Mom wear the navy tie. Smile. Don't make me sick. Dad. No speeches from you unless it's an apology. Ella, it's my day. Stay in your lane. I took screenshots, then turned the phone face down and watched the copier lamp pass left to right under the glass, the way my apartment light does across my face. Machines know their jobs. I plan to be a machine. On the way to the venue, I stopped by the river and read my grandfather's sentence aloud just once to hear it fit in the air. Use it for you. The wind pushed my hair back. My left cheek warmed, the right went cool. I tucked the letter into its sleeve behind the bank PDFs. Not a weapon, a spine. The venue was a room that wanted to be a photograph. Gold chairs, round tables, eucalyptus trying to smell like forest. The bar television cycled silent sports highlights, collisions replayed so often they looked routine. Staff in black moved like stagehands. I could taste the lemon in the polish on the glassware. I checked in with the coordinator. On her clipboard, my name sat in a neat serif under 6'4", 5 sponsored toast. I took a photo. That's wrong, I said. It'll be corrected. She lied with a smile she needed for 1,000 other problems. I didn't push. I already had the picture. In the hallway outside the coach room, Brandon stood with his tie draped around his neck like a leash he hadn't decided to wear. He smelled like aftershave and nerves. You look good, man, he said, voice too bright. Big day, I said. He nodded, swallowed. I didn't know about the signature thing, he blurted. Your dad said you were in. He raked a hand through his hair. I don't know what I thought. I held his eyes. Do better thinking from here on. He nodded like a kid. I will. I believed him enough to let him walk away. D. Ruth and Co. Gary waved me over by the escort cards. We're near the head table, Ruth said, touching my sleeve the way you touch a wire to see if it's live. Raise your water glass if you need the room to slow down. I took their hands and felt my heart settle one notch lower in my chest. Witnesses change rooms. In the foyer, Victor worked a small circle like a politician in a church basement. Handshakes. Chin tilts, the practice good to see you that buys 5 more minutes of reputation. His business partner, Evan Marks, lingered at his shoulder. Monday's pitch, Evan said. We'll need to talk after dinner. Victor patted his arm. After dinner, he promised, as if a meal can fix a balance sheet. He saw me and gave the half smile he uses when he wants to look magnanimous in front of donors. You made it, he said. Thank your mother. I thanked Arjun, I said. The smile flickered. Danielle intercepted me, with a tight clipboard and tighter smile. We'll announce toasts after entree, she said. I can say, Mason read only. Say nothing, I said. If I speak, I'll stand. Her eyes searched my face for softness. She didn't find any. Understood, she said, and moved on, a professional, trying to keep a table from wobbling when the floor is the problem. In the gents, I ran cold water over my wrists and watched it bead on my skin and break away. The mirror gave me the same face I'd practiced, bright on the left, clean shadow on the right jaw, loose eyes steady. I lined the pen parallel to the folio's edge on the counter, then picked both up and felt the weight, not heavy. Exact. A text from an unknown number arrived while I dried my hands. Keep your mouth shut. It's Ella's day. Another followed. You want a family, act like it. My thumb hovered over callback. I didn't. I took screenshots, printed them at the hotel's business center on paper that felt cheap and perfect, hole punch tab threats, page 2. Before the ceremony, a server placed a program in my hand. Sponsored toast was still there, ink already dry. I slid the program into a side pocket, another receipt in a suit. When the string quartet started something soft and interchangeable, I felt my pulse match it, then move past it faster, like my body knew where this was going and was trying to get there first. Seats filled. The room warmed. Glasses clinked the way they do when strangers want to sound like company. Linda brushed my arm as she passed perfume like sugar hiding smoke. Let's keep tonight sweet, she said. Smile when they call your name. They won't, I said. She blinked like a light going out. Don't do this, she whispered. Do what I asked. Tell the truth. She moved away before I could read her mouth. At the bar, the television replayed a slow-motion tackle. A player flew, hit, stood, jogged it off. Practice something long enough, and getting knocked down looks like part of the choreography. I looked at the clock over the exit sign. The minute hand climbed toward the part of the night when programs turn into instructions. As we were seated, Evan leaned toward Victor. "So you covered the last invoice?" he asked. "Low, not low enough." "We're handled," Victor said. The words sat on the tablecloth like a stain. I lifted my water glass, the signal Ruth and Gary were waiting for, and took a slow drink. The room didn't stop, but they saw. The salads arrived. My folio lay on the table, black and thin, no louder than a menu, until it opened. I adjusted the pin parallel to the edge and felt my breath find the same straightness. Danielle touched the mic, and the room pinged the universal hum that means attention is on the way. A last email from Arjun slid across my screen, chargeback initiated. Do not consent to any on-site fixes. Call if pressured. I typed one word back, received. Then I put the phone face down and palmed the folio like a book I'd already memorized. Someone at the head table tapped a glass. The chandelier thrummed. The MC lifted the mic and smiled wide enough to pretend he owned the room. "We have a few words before dinner," he said. "From family." I set my hand flat on the folio's cover. The spine gave a little under my palm, as if it were bowing me on stage. I wasn't going to toast. I was going to testify. The MC smiled into the mic like he owned the room. "We have a few words from family before dinner." I stood palm flat on the folio. The chandelier thrummed. Silver chimed. Somewhere behind me, the bar television rolled a slow-motion tackle. I felt the left side of my face warm from the lights, the right side hold a clean shadow. I didn't raise my hand. I didn't clink a glass. I walked to the head table and set the folio down between the centerpiece and the gravy boat. "Before the toasts," I said, voice even a short record. Victor tried to laugh. "Mason, sit." "We don't need." I opened the folio. Paper made that soft sigh it makes when it knows it's about to matter. I slid the top packet to him, then one to Linda, one to Ella, one to Danielle, who went a shade paler and clicked her pin shut like a seatbelt. I stepped sideways and placed a copy in front of Evan Marks. Last, I handed a slim set to D. Ruth and Co. Gary. "Witnesses change rooms." "Page 1, I said. "Bank letter. Fraud alert. Credit freeze. Branch note in bold, no authorizations by phone. In person only with my ID." I touched the line with a fingertip. "Attempts at conference call. Awareness. Flagged and denied." Dad's jaw shifted like a gear grinding. "You dragged your bank into a wedding." "The bank arrived when $25,000 left my account without me," I said. Ella snorted. "You're seriously doing this on my day?" "Your day stopped being yours the second you put my name on it," I said, still level. "Page 2. Danielle's eyes raced. "This signature is not consistent," she murmured, mostly to herself. "Page 2, I repeated for the room. "Shoreline Events Services Agreement. My name listed as primary contact, divided by billing. Signature slanting left. My real signature slants right." I laid a sheet with 3 examples beside it, the same N, the same open, M, the same small, rightward lean, a teacher once praised. "If a document has my name without my signature," I said, "it doesn't have me." Linda reached for Victor's forearm. "Honey, please. This is ugly." "Ugly is a forged contract," I said. "Ugly is an IP log from our home network on a transaction for $25,000. Page 3. Evan lifted his copy. His eyebrows met. "IP logs. From the bank's internal report. Source network. Read residence," I said. "Chargeback initiated. Counsel retained." I've highlighted the lines that matter. Victor's laugh broke in the middle. "Counsel, you brought a lawyer to your sister's wedding." "I brought paper," I said. "Because paper is the only thing you don't talk over." The room shifted, chairs creaked, forks paused midair. The HVAC pushed a new breath across the ceiling. From somewhere near the bar, glass clinked too hard, and someone hissed, "Sorry." Danielle lifted her head. "Given this, we cannot rely on the current primary contact designation," she said, voice professional and small. "Bar service will adjust accordingly until funds are." "Don't you dare," Ella snapped, eyes bright as broken glass. "You're not ruining my bar. Your bar was never mine to buy." I said. Page 4 is a 1-page timeline. Furnace, $2,200. Tuition, $1,000. Lease co-sign. Streaming plans. Cell floats. Wedding deposit disputed. "This is what family helps family has looked like when it hits my ledger." Linda whispered. "Don't make me sick," the same line she uses when I don't agree in private. "Kindness isn't consent," I said quietly enough that only the head table heard it and loud enough that everyone knew it landed. Victor set his palm on the folio like he could smother it. Apologize to your sister, he said. We'll handle this Monday. Tonight is not the Evan stood. The scrape of his chair sounded like a verdict. Victor, he said, eyes still on the packet. You told me our lines were clean. They are, Victor said too fast. They aren't, Evan said. Not after this. He laid the packet down like it was heavy. We'll talk, he said to me. And to Victor, he added. Separately, he stepped back from the table. The space he left behind made a sound. My phone buzzed once, just once. Arjun chargeback in motion. Do not consent to any on-site fix. I set the phone face down without reading it a second time. I turned to Danielle. Your programs list me for a sponsor toast, I said. I slid the trifold across. Corrected at the mic. She nodded, eyes wet the way professionals look when they've realized they were handed a grenade with the pin out. I will. Ella's voice dropped to a whisper that still carried. Your adopted drama in a suit, she said. It was the kind of cut meant to bleed in the dark. I didn't flinch. Love doesn't use labels as invoices, I said. Call me brother if you want a brother. Call me sponsor if you have my card. Linda's napkin rustled under her fingers. Don't do this, she begged. Smile. Eat. We can settle details later. Details are where people hide decisions, I said. A server hovered unsure whether to pass the rolls through a storm. D. Ruth touched the packet with 2 fingers like it was a pulse. It's all here, she said simply. Gary nodded once, a small gavel. Victor leaned closer until I could see the pores on his nose. Put it away, he said through his teeth. Or don't come home again. I reached into my pocket and placed a small envelope on the linen. It made a dull, honest sound. I slid the spare house key out and set it beside the envelope so no one could pretend not to see. I don't go places I'm not welcome, I said. And you don't use spare keys on my accounts. He stared at the key like it had spoken. Ungrateful, he said. Documented, I answered. At the far end of the table, the MC hovered, clutching the mic, smile trembling. Danielle caught his sleeve and whispered. He nodded, looked at me, looked at the packets, looked at the room, and set the mic down like it might break. Everyone breathe, Linda pleaded, voice cracking into sugar and smoke. This is a celebration. I gathered the copies back into a neat stack, except for the ones in front of Victor, Linda, Ella, and Evan. Those I left like place cards no one ordered. I slid the folio shut. The sound was a soft click, like a door closing correctly for the first time in years. Ella stood chair legs skittering. You ruined it, she said, the kind of cry that's been practiced in mirrors. You ruined my wedding. I looked at her the way you look at a traffic light that just turned red. I refused to pay for it, I said. Those are different verbs. A hush spread, not reverent aware. At the bar, the television replayed the tackle again. The player flew. Hit. Stood up. Jogged it off. Practice something long enough, and even impact looks like choreography. I turned to the room because sometimes clarity needs an audience. I'm not your co-signer, I said slow enough for the mics that weren't on. I'm not your guarantor. My signature is not a family fundraiser. My credit is not your spare room. If a document has my name without my wet signature, it doesn't have me. If a phone call says I said yes, it's lying. No one clapped. Good. This wasn't a performance. I picked up the folio and the empty envelope and left the key, where it lay, a small, bright refusal. As I stepped back from the table, Danielle's headset crackled. Attention, she told the staff, voice tight, adjust bar to wine and beer only until further notice. A low ripple moved through the room like a field struck by wind. I walked past the bar where the lemon polish stung my nose, past the coach room, where programs said sponsor toast in a font that wouldn't save them, past Evan studying his phone with the stillness of a man adding columns in his head. In the hallway mirror, the light carved my face left to right, bright, then shadow, a map instead of a mask. I looked like a man who'd stopped apologizing to keep the table from shaking. Behind me, voices rose and collided, Linda's pleading, Victor's hissed orders, Ella's vowels sharpened into glass. Someone said, "Is that legal?" Someone else said, "It's in writing." The door to the kitchen swung and swung, staff moving in a rhythm that didn't care whose name was on the program. At the threshold, I turned once more. D. Ruth raised her water glass, the small signal we agreed on. Her eyes said, "We saw." Gary set his packet down and folded his hands as if he were about to say grace over a new kind of meal. Evan slipped his suit jacket on and walked toward the exit without touching Victor's shoulder. I didn't smile. I didn't bow. I nodded at Danielle. "Thank you," I said. She managed to whisper back. Documentation beats drama. Every time I said, I stepped out into the hallway's cooler air. The folio felt light in my hand. The door behind me breathed shut quiet as a ledger balancing. I didn't slam the door on my way out. The hallway smelled like lemon polish and something cooling. My folio weighed less now that the pages had done their work. In the lobby, I stood under a recessed light, left side warm, right side in clean shadow, and let my breath catch up to me. Paper doesn't raise its voice. It doesn't need to. By the time I reached my car, Arjun's email had landed, chargeback initiated. Merchant notified. Do not approve any remediation attempts on site. Attached were PDFs with stamps that looked like quiet hammers. I forwarded them to myself again and filed them into the binder's new tab. After, at home, the studio was the kind of silent that feels earned. I set the folio on the counter, brewed coffee that tasted a little like metal, and opened my laptop. Danielle's subject line waited. Amendment divided by termination. Notice. The body was measured professional given disputed authority. And a non-verifiable primary contact. Shoreline would not rely on any signature bearing my name. Certain services would be curtailed immediately, others canceled pending verified payment. A second email from the venue read like a weather report. Bar service limited account on hold. Gravity had decided to help. Read fam pulsed like a trapped insect. Mom's voicemail came sugar thin, smoke thick. You made a scene. Then softer, almost honest. Please call me. Victor's text was a single order. Return the key. I pictured the dull glint of brass sitting on linen and let the image answer for me. Ella posted a photo of a bouquet against a bathroom mirror with a caption about jealous people, then edited it to a Bible verse. I took screenshots, not to weaponize, just to remember where the lines were drawn. At midnight, Ruth sent a photograph. A glass of water raised the packet stacked neatly beside her plate. Her message was 3 words. We saw you. I put my palm on the binder's spine and felt it settle like a vertebra clicking in place. Sunday afternoon, a 30-second video circulated in the family group. No audio, just the folio opening the papers, sliding like cards, Danielle's pen, freezing over the program line that read, Sponsor Toast. You couldn't see the numbers, only the shift in faces. Comments from cousins turned soft and short. Is he okay? We didn't know. It's different when the room sees. I moved money from a dusty savings account to enroll in a winter certification I'd bookmarked and never dared to buy. I ordered a better chair for my back. Small upgrades, quiet as a closed drawer. Revenge, if that's even the word, wasn't fireworks. It was refusing to keep their ladders steady while they climbed onto my roof. Monday, Evan's name flashed. I let it go to voicemail. His message was crisp. We need to reschedule. Different assumptions now. I breathed out slowly and watched steam fade in the cold window light. Use it for you. My grandfather had written the sentence that never needed a second line. The house key stayed on their table. The door to my place locked with a click that sounded like a boundary being notarized. Maybe they sell the venue contract. Maybe they patch it together. Maybe they don't. Maybe Mom calls again and we talk as 2 adults with paper between us. Maybe Ella learns to sign only her name. I ironed the white shirt I'd worn and hung it back on the chair to keep its shape. In the mirror, the light moved left to right and found the same face, a little quieter at the edges. They thought cornering me would make me smaller. All they did was hand me the only weapon that doesn't run out, my name, written only by me. If any part of this felt like your table, your inbox, your name on someone else's form, tell me in the comments. What line would you use at your next boundary? Where are you watching from tonight? Hit like so YouTube pushes this to someone who needs it, and share it with the friend who keeps receipts but rarely gets credit. Subscribe for full-length first-person family dramas and quiet revenge arcs where paper beats noise and a signature means what it says. New episodes drop here. Betrayals faced, boundaries drawn, outcomes documented, no yelling required, just truth that holds. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, subscribe. This story isn't over.